22.7%.
22.7% of what, DJ?
Okay. Of homes in this country that sold above list price this February, 1 in 4. So that's a Redfin number, just came out, and everyone's reading it as really good news for buyers.
So it's a buyer's market out there, and that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, specifically here in Chicago, I know that's happening, but again, across the country, that's the stat. So nationally, we're seeing this. But here's the thing that I don't hear as much talk about, which is that 1 in 4. So these are the houses that buyers actually want. So these are the good ones, the good houses. So the ones in the right neighborhoods, and your buyers are still losing them. So I'm DJ Paris, that's Tim Littleton. Today, we are going to fix that for you. Stay with us. So I'm going to set the scene. So your buyer finds the house, they love it, you ran the comps, you landed on a solid number, you wrote the offer, you feel good about it, then the call comes.
So we've received multiple offers. Please submit your highest and best.
Yeah, that's the sentence, right? So every buyer's agent dreads it, because at that moment, most agents, they really just do one thing.
Yeah, they end up pushing the price up.
That's right. They push the price up. Maybe they add an escalation clause. Maybe they shorten inspection. But the whole strategy is add more money and hope something sticks.
Yeah, and sometimes it does work.
Yeah, sometimes it does work. Yeah, right. Here's what most agents don't know. So NAR has their own published guide on multiple offer situations. It's actually quite good. It's called the Buyer's and Seller's Guide to Multiple Offer Negotiations. And right there in writing, NAR tells sellers they're allowed to consider factors beyond price: closing timeline, financing strength, contingencies, how clean the offer is, for example.
Wait, so DJ, you're telling me NAR itself is telling sellers you don't have to take the highest and best number?
Yeah, that's in writing from NAR in their own website. So when your offer gets beat by a lower number, the seller didn't do anything sketchy. They just did what NAR literally told them that they could do.
So how often is the seller actually leaving money on the table?
Yeah, so more than agents would like to admit, and I'm not going to throw a made-up percentage at you because I don't want the exact number, or I don't know the exact number rather, but neither does anyone who's being honest. But here's what I do know. So sellers aren't just maximizing a price, they're managing risk. So they're lying awake the night before the review going, is this deal going to close? Is it going to close on my timeline? Am I going to get 3 weeks in and watch this whole thing fall apart?
So they're actually risk managers, not price maximizers.
Yeah, my friend Ben Lawless from Compass, he talks about this a lot when someone on his team gets an offer and it's from an agent that they, number one, don't know and the agent hasn't been very communicative, isn't calling, saying, let me explain the situation. Let me talk about why this is a great offer, when they're just kind of just emailing the offer and kind of hoping for the best. Ben says, I get really nervous about that, even if it's the highest one, because I don't know if the agent's going to be there to get this thing over the finish line. So he's like, I really think about risk and risk management. Most buyers agents, they show up to a risk assessment, really playing a price war. And those are really two totally different games.
Yeah. And that's so uncomfortable to hear, because I think I've played before, and I think a lot of brokers out there played the wrong game before.
Yeah, most of us feel the exact same way. So here's one line I want you to hold on to from this segment. So your buyer isn't losing because they're cheap. They're losing because they're predictable.
Wow. That one's going to land differently every time I hear it.
Right. And here's what predictability actually costs. It's not just the offer. So each time your buyer hears highest and best and you come back empty-handed again, they start asking themselves a question. Is it me? Should I be calling someone else?
Yeah. And I've heard, brokers out there that have had buyers walk away after 2-3 losses, on deals. It happens more than people want to admit.
It happens to everybody, and especially everybody who doesn't have a system. So we want to help you guys make that not happen as much to you, hopefully never again. But the agents who stop losing buyers, they're not luckier. They just know what we're about to show you. So stick with us. So, okay, before the fix, let's talk about why agents keep ending up in this spot. And this couldn't be, I think, better talked about than right now, because it's all I'm hearing about from our agents and agents outside of Kale Realty. And it's not about effort, right? So agents in the multiple offer situations, they are working hard. They're running comps, they're writing offers, they're doing what they were trained to do.
So what's actually going on or going wrong here?
Yeah. So I think it's three things. So they all feed each other. So it's kind of really one thing with three tentacles. So the first one is price first thinking. So when most agents hear multiple offers, their brain jumps straight to the number. How high can we go? How high can you go? What's the max the buyer will stretch? Price becomes the whole strategy and the only strategy. And it feels like the most controllable thing.
Yeah, it's the lever that everyone knows how to pull.
Yeah, it's certainly the loudest and biggest lever, but it's not the only one. Second thing, nobody calls.
So nobody calls the listing agent?
Yeah, this is what I was talking about that Ben was sharing with me. He said only about, well, I haven't asked him for a recent stat, but the last time I asked this like 6 months ago, he said about 30%. I think I could have that wrong, but it was certainly that low. It might have been lower of agents who submit offers actually call. But before the offer is submitted, you need to be calling, or you need to be really, you should be calling even before. But before you've committed to anything, before buyers agents pick up the phone and call the listing agent, they never ask, like, what matters to the seller, right? Is there something else besides price that comes up? So what would make this easier?
Yeah, and that call takes what, 5 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is they're waiting for the offer to the buyer, or sorry, they're writing the offer to the buyer, not the seller. So they're thinking about what the buyer can afford, what protects the buyer, what the buyer wants, all valid, reasoning. But a winning offer is written not for the buyer, but for the seller, right? So what closes the gap between what they have and what they need to feel safe, and saying, yeah, let's do this.
So what's the third thing, DJ?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And the other thing too is the intel from these calls that we talked about, getting the call of the listing agent is really worth more than even an escalation, clause where $10,000 is involved. Most agents, they skip the call. So I wanted to go back to that. It feels awkward, or they assume the listing agent won't say anything, or they just don't even think to do it. So let me explain, kind of go through these again. So we talked about kind of making the call and then writing the offer to the wrong audience. So here's what I want you to do right now before we get to how to fix all this. So think of a buyer you're currently working with. And if you have a buyer out there, you're probably dealing with multiple offers, someone in a competitive area or someone who's maybe already lost an offer. Just think of one buyer. Hold that buyer in your head. So don't say who, just hold them. We're going to do something specific for them before we sign off today.
Okay, I've got mine.
Okay, good. Because by the time we sign off, you'll know exactly what to do for that buyer. So let's get into it. So we're going to call this the certainty stack. So this is 4 layers. And when you build all 4 into an offer, you're not just competing on price, you're actually competing on the thing the seller actually cares about, then that the deal actually closes.
All right, DJ. So go ahead, walk us through it.
Okay, so first layer, the pre-underwrite. So most buyers show up with a pre-approval letter. We all know that. You know what a pre-approval letter is to a sophisticated listing agent?
Something tells me it's less impressive than I thought.
Right. It is. It's a letter that says a lender looked at this buyer's income and credit for about 20 minutes, thinks they can probably get a loan. That's it. A pre-underwrite is different. With a pre-underwrite, sometimes called a credit approved loan, the underwriting is already done. Conditions are met. The lender just needs the property address and they're ready to close.
So it's as close to a cash offer as a finance buyer can get.
Yeah, it's one step above a pre-approval letter, one step below a cash offer. It's as close as you can really get. When a listing agent sees that letter, they read it obviously very differently. That stack of offers on the table suddenly has that one that says, this is a closer.
And step 1 is you have to talk to your lender before you ever, engage in a competitive situation, not during the situation.
Right. So before, so not every lender offers this. Good lenders do, and it's free. It's not an additional fee to the lender or to the buyer. If your buyer's looking in a hot pocket and doesn't have one, make that call today. All right, let's get into layer 2. So layer one was the pre-approve or the pre-underwriting rather.
Yeah.
Layer two is called the intel call. So we're going to go back to that idea of contacting the seller. So seller's agent. So before your offer goes in, you call the listing agent. So it doesn't matter whether you think they'll release anything, share any important information. You make the call regardless, and you don't ask about the offer. You ask about the seller.
What's the difference?
Yeah. And again, I know for some of you, this is like, yeah, of course, everybody knows this. Not everybody knows this, but you're going to be calling and asking, what's the seller looking for? Well, sorry, you're not going to just do that because that really doesn't get you much. So here's what you want to ask. Is there anything about the timing that would make this easier for your clients? You want to get really specific with the questions, not this open-ended. You know, we were taught to ask open-ended questions, but not in this case. You want to get really targeted. Is there anything about the timing that would make this easier for your clients? That gets you everything you want to know. So now you're asking about their life, their move date, their next purchase, whether they need 30 days, they need post-close occupancy, stuff like that.
Okay, so I want to push back a little bit on this, DJ,
Okay.
because I've heard people have made that call, and a lot of time they get submit your best offer. We'll review on Sunday. Best of luck. Door closed.
Yeah.
What do you actually do when the listing agent like shuts you down?
Yeah. And that happens. So two things. But first, you still asked. That puts you on their radar as an agent who does their homework. They appreciate that. Even if you don't win that particular deal, they'll remember you. But it matters more than people think when they're sorting through a pile of offers. And second, if they won't talk timeline, then you pivot to the property. So you say something like, okay, is there anything about the condition of the home that's come up that we should know about? Sometimes what the seller is most anxious about is a repair they know exists. If you know that, you know exactly what language to put in your offer.
Okay, so you're gathering intel even when they say they won't really give you any.
Right. So every answer is information, even the I can't share this. Okay, so here's layer three. So we call this a timeline mirror. So most underused layer in the whole stack, costs your buyer nothing, and you find out when the seller wants to close. If they need to stay after closing, that's called a rent back, and then you match the offer to that exactly.
Okay, so we're not saying, oh, we're flexible. Actually mirror the date.
Yeah, you mirror it. So if seller wants 45 days, your offer says 45 days. Seller needs a 30-day rent back, done, no rent charged. It costs the buyer nothing, and to the seller, it reads as these people get it, they understand me. This is the easy offer.
So this all sounds way too simple to matter.
Yeah, but it is that simple. And almost nobody does it because they've never made the intel call to find out what the seller actually needed. Layers 2 and 3 are the same move. Here's layer 4. So this is called the clean escalation. So most agents either avoid escalation clauses because they feel like it's showing your hand, or they use them incorrectly. So they escalate in $1,000 increments up to a cap. The listing agent does the math in 10 seconds.
Okay, so they'll go to 520. Got it.
Right. So a clean escalation starts at above asking, escalates in meaningful increments, $5,000 minimum, and has a cap that sits above where you estimate the top offer will land. So I'm going to say that again. So a good escalation starts at or above asking, escalates in meaningful increments, 5,000 is probably the minimum, and has a cap that sits above where you estimate the top offer will land. You're not showing desperation, you're showing confidence. There's a difference.
Okay, so the real question to the agents watching this, have you ever won a multiple offer situation with an escalation clause? If you did, drop what worked in the comments. We're just genuinely curious, and I know other brokers would like to learn ways of using an escalation clause.
Yeah, great idea. Drop that in the comments. And so the buyer that I asked you to hold in your head right now, everyone listening, we're almost there. So give me just 2 more minutes and we'll tell you exactly what to do.
Okay, I have to say the thing out loud that a lot of the agents are watching are thinking. We've talked about a contingencies a few times. At some point, we've had to deal with an inspection conversation because the second you suggest reducing the inspection contingency to win an offer, half the people watching think about the one client who got burned. We've all heard a story. A buyer waive inspection, found a foundation issue after close, $40,000. I've heard that. So when you tell us to touch the inspection contingency, I push back, a little hard on that.
Yeah, and you should. Waiving inspection wholesale is not what I'm suggesting. And in most markets, it's not what you actually need to win. Here are three options that work without playing roulette with your buyer. So, option one, pre-offer walkthrough, not a full inspection, no report, no contingencies. You call a contractor or inspector you trust. You walk the property for 30 minutes before the offer is written. You're looking for the big stuff. Takes one afternoon, costs a couple $100.
Okay, so you've done your homework before you've ever entered in the negotiation.
I did this with a used car I bought. I'll just share this really quick story because I didn't even think to do it. The actual seller told me to do it, and I'm so glad that he did. So I walked onto this used car lot, and I was so uncomfortable because I've never been on a used car lot. I've always been trained to think that's where like bad deals go on and bad cars are sold and people get screwed. But they had this exact perfect car that I wanted, and no dealer had it. So I was like, okay. So I walked onto a used car lot. The guy goes, "Have you ever been on a used car lot before?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "You're probably feeling like this is kind of sketchy." And I go, "Yeah, I kind of do." He goes, "Well, that's not the kind of operation I run." He said, "But here's the thing. You're not going to trust me because I'm the guy selling you the car." So he's like, here's really what I want you to do. He goes, "I know this car is perfect, but you don't know it's perfect. And I can't have you bringing it back saying I got ripped off. That's bad for me." He goes, "I want you telling everybody this guy's the real deal." He goes, "Take it to any mechanic you want. Take it for a day or two." He's like, "I won't charge you anything. Just leave me your, something." I had to leave something, maybe a check for $1,000 or something, just in case I didn't come back. But he goes, "Just have it, scope it out, and then have the mechanic tell you what the mechanic thinks. Go to anybody you want." And that was really smart. And I was like, that is really smart. So I took it to the mechanic. The mechanic looked at it. He was like, "This car's perfect. You're fine." And that gave me all the confidence. I went back and I'm like, "You're the real thing." So we're talking about the same thing here. You can do the same thing. So you've done your homework. Here's, you basically, again, this pre-offer walkthrough. So that's what I recommend. It's a few $100.
Yes. So what does this, inspection language actually look like in the offer?
Well, yeah. And so, let's talk about what the inspection thing is. So I call this inspection with a repair cap. So you keep the contingency and you write in the buyer accepts property in current condition for repair items under a set dollar amount. So 5,000, 10,000, whatever fits the market, right? The seller reads that as, we're not going to nickel and dime you, but we're not walking into a money pit either. And so here's how you write it. You write it something like this: buyer accepts the property in its current condition as it relates to repair items under a certain specific dollar threshold, X dollar. Buyer reserves the right to negotiate or void for repair items that exceed the threshold. That exact sentence, copy it into your next offer.
Wow, that's actually a very powerful statement. So what's option number 3, DJ?
Yeah, shorten the timeline. So keep the full contingency, go from 10 days to 5. Sellers read a tight inspection period as these buyers are organized. They won't drag this out. Sometimes that alone tips the scales. So I want to put a real number on what losing offers costs, because obviously so many agents are dealing with this. And agents and buyers both treat each loss as just a bad day, and it is a bad day, but it's not a free bad day.
What's the actual cost, DJ?
Yeah. So you take a buyer who loses 3 offers 3 months before winning one. That's not unusual in a market like this. And median US rent right now is around $2,000 a month per Zillow's recent rent index. So more here in Chicago. 3 months is $6,000 paid towards nothing while they keep searching.
And that market's not sitting while they wait.
Right. Yeah, not fast, but not still. Case Shiller had national home prices up about 1.5% year over year at the end of last year on a $500,000 house. 3 months of appreciation is real money. It's not crushing, but it's not zero either.
Yeah, so you're looking at thousands of dollars gone just from losing offers you could have potentially won.
Yeah, and that's at a minimum. And then there's just money. So that's not the phone call where your buyer says, "I think I need to try working with somebody else." That's not the referral they would have given you if you'd won the first time.
Yeah. And every buyer you lose to a failed offer is a sphere of influence that walks out with them.
Yeah, every single one. We call this again the certainty stack. It doesn't just win offers, it really protects your business. So, all right, back to that buyer that you were thinking about. And here's exactly what I encourage you to do this week. One, call your lender today and ask about pre underwriting. If they offer it, get it done before the next offer. Two, before that offer goes in, make that intel call to the list agent. Ask about timing, ask about the seller's situation. Three, mirror the seller's timeline to your offer exactly. Don't estimate, match it.
Yeah. So 3 moves this week, not someday eventually.
Yeah. And here's what I want to say to everyone watching. So you didn't tune into the show to try this sometime. That's the old story. Good intention, same result, offer after offer. The agents who win competitive markets, they're not luckier. I'm telling you, I talk to top producing agents all over the country every single week. They have a system like this. You just learn the system. That's who you are now.
Yeah. So go out there, go make the phone call.
Yeah, the highest offer, remember, doesn't always win. The clearest offer almost always does. All right, we will see everybody next week. And if you are a local Chicago agent and you are not getting these kind of tips from your management company, maybe your trainers, your coaches, your support team, we would love to chat with you. We have a whole team in place. Risa Weiss is our head of agent development. She's amazing, and she will help get you on the right track. So if you're not getting the support, training, even the commissions that you deserve, reach out to Tim or myself. We'd love to chat with you. We have 700 plus agents at KL Realty. When we started this, Nick started at our owner in 2007. I came on board in 2011. We had just a few agents. Today we have over 700. So we've certainly are making a bit of a splash. We are super excited to always chat to see if we might be a good fit for you. And, who knows, maybe we would be, but we will let you know that. Reach out to us. Let us know. You can even sit in on some of our trainings before you join us. Try before you buy, right? So reach out to us. We can get you into those. All right, Tim, thank you so much to all of our audience. Thank you guys so much. We will see everybody on the next Coffee Talk. Thanks, Tim.
See you next